Hello, people. Welcome back to another video by your good friend, Chad Marco, the big Aniki. Make sure you guys check out my other social media and let's talk. This video is long overdue. So, I'm sure you guys have heard the news. Donald Trump won the election. Now, what's interesting is that I did an election stream the night where they were, tallying up the votes and all that. And, it was starting to look like that we weren't going to know for like several hours. I was up to like 1 or something in the morning, and it just, like, at first they were counting the votes up pretty quickly, but then it was like a stall in it for a while. And I was like, you know what? It's probably not even going to be known till like 7, 8 in the morning. I'm not staying up all night. So I went ahead and went to sleep. And right when I woke up, the president was decided, and it was Donald Trump. I think they probably knew like an hour or two after I went to sleep. But I just had no way of knowing that they would figure it out that quickly, because it was not looking like it was going to be fast at that point. But yeah, Donald Trump, he won. He defeated Kamala Harris. And it's funny because I told you guys this, but the only thing that bothered me about Donald Trump winning was my mom, because I've told you guys that, I always try to talk about politics with my mom and keep her informed. And because my mom is the type where she is easily influenced by mainstream media. And you know how mainstream media tries to like paint Donald Trump out to be way worse than what he really is. And my mom fell for that too. And I feel like really ever since 2016, I've kind of just been in her ear, right? Just trying to let her know, look, you don't have to like Donald Trump, but he's not nearly as bad as the mainstream media is trying to paint him out to be. And in fact, a lot of the things he's talking about make sense. And, it took a while, but I could kind of see her like coming around. But when they switched out Biden for Kamala, all that went out the window. Her allegiance to the committee of pussy or women just supersedes everything else. So once Kamala was on the ticket as, the one that would be going up against Donald Trump, like instantly I saw her change her tune, and I could tell that she wanted Kamala to win. I just think the idea of having a black female president, she just couldn't help herself, and look, fine. But point is, when Kamala lost, I knew that my mom would be disappointed. And I could tell the second she walked into the house, because she found out while she was at work. And so we started talking about it when she got home. I could tell she was disappointed, but I had to remind my mother, like, look at the past 4 years and how much of a disaster it has been. And, I feel like one of the biggest things I try to avoid is trying to make like a sweeping generalization or assumption about people based on their political beliefs. But I swear, man, for anyone to be a supporter of Biden or Kamala after these last 4 years, I do not understand. I have to question your intelligence or awareness. Maybe you're ignorant about it. I don't get it. I understand not liking Trump. I can give you that. But to defend, even to prefer this administration when it was clearly worse than Donald Trump. And I always tell you guys, bro, I know you see me with the MAGA hat and all that shit, but I'm not a hardcore Donald Trump supporter or anything like that. My stance has always been the same and been very simple. I got to see Donald Trump be president, and I saw Biden. And in my opinion, America was in much better shape when Donald Trump was president. The problem with Trump was that people hated him. The problem with Biden was that people hated the things that he was actually doing. People started to hate America, right? But it's amazing to me that despite like this clear comparison that we have, people are still willing to ride that. And you know, I get it that now that Kamala was supposed to take Biden's place, you could say, well, she won't do what he did, but I gotta call bullshit there, because, and I believe somebody actually asked her if you support or co-sign the Biden administration and what he did, and I think she said yeah. Like you gotta think about it. If you ask her, do you co-sign Biden? Do you feel like he did a good job? You know what she's going to say. She's going to say yeah. So again, even if you want to say that she's going to be different or whatever, just the fact that she can't look at the Biden administration objectively and separate herself from it. And I get it, right? Like it would take balls to do that. Cause you'd be drawing a hard line there, but still, right? If you can't do that, I don't see how people could really support her. But yeah, Donald Trump won. And I gotta be honest, and I know some of you guys are gonna be disappointed about this, considering what I said before. But in the end, I never voted for either Kamala or Donald Trump. I just could not pull the trigger. Even though I was going to the library like almost regularly during this point, and they had all the signs up, the voting booths and all that, I couldn't bring myself to vote for Donald Trump. And because one, to be honest, I don't have the same faith in him that other people seem to have. And I've talked about this before, and I think this is a very important point. Even if you think Donald Trump did a good job during his first 4 years in the White House, look at how quickly they were able to undo any positive, any good that he was able to do, how quickly they undid that shit. What that showed me was that we have a deeper issue as far as like our government. And because it's like, even if we get a president that's going to steer the country into a better direction, if that's not the will of the deep state, if that's not the will of the globalist agendas and whatnot, all they have to do is either, now again, this is where conspiracy comes in. Some people believe they stole and rigged the election where Biden won. If not, just bide your time, right? Play the game until you get your guy in there. But when I look at how quickly they were able to just turn this country into garbage, bro, like real shit. And I said this before, man, but you know, I always felt like I'm not the most patriotic person, but in the back of my mind, I just always felt like if it came down to like defending America, maybe not going overseas to fight a war, but defending American soil, I could see myself stepping up to fight, right? Like if we were in this type of situation that the Ukrainians are in, fighting up against Russia, I could always see myself being willing to step up in a situation like that, right? To believe in home and country and to be willing to fight and die for that, right? To lose limbs and get blown up by drones and recorded in agony, right? God, it's terrible. But yeah, I felt like I could do that. And during the Biden administration, I swear it was the first time where I didn't feel like that anymore. Without a shadow of a doubt, I knew that we had been betrayed by our own government, and it was a terrible feeling for me to realize that America has really slipped through the fingers of the people. You know, the foundation of this country, as far as like, you know, governance by the people for the people, protection of things like free speech. We're seeing that slowly but surely creep away from us. More and more challenges to the Second Amendment, more laws, more policies. Like when you think about it, every new law and policy and thing that is coming out is something to put a tighter chain around our neck or greater control over us. And I never felt so poorly about the country that I live in. And it's been a terrible 4 years as far as like what little patriotism I did have. At this point in my life, I don't feel any true loyalty to my country anymore, to be honest. And as much as I like Donald Trump, you know, I feel like he's one of the most authentic politicians. Some would even say he's not actually a politician. He's one of the most authentic politicians we've ever seen. And love him or hate him, I feel like that's something that a lot of people can appreciate, and I think that's just something that we need more of. You know, these cookie cutter perfect politicians, we've seen them come and go so many times, right? And one thing I've learned is that it doesn't matter how perfect somebody seems on the surface. It's about the job. It's about what their intent is as far as like the governance of the people. You know, and I feel like for too long we've been fooled by these politicians who present themselves as being squeaky clean, perfect, flawless, only for them to be elected and then not really prioritize America, not really prioritize the people. And with Donald Trump, he gives you that feeling of just the opposite, you know. But yeah, that's one of the first reasons why I couldn't vote for him, was just that I don't believe that he's the answer. I think that the answer is beyond Donald Trump. And I talked about that in the video before, but I think really we got to look beyond Donald Trump and look at the overall structure of our government and, you know, how elections are conducted, who we elect, and things like that. But probably the biggest problem in America, just all this division, right? And the other thing too is, you know, Donald Trump is not without his flaws. You know, he's, man, one of the slam dunks for him is this whole immigration thing. You know, the Democrats just had no answer for that because there was no excuse. That was a blatant betrayal of the American people to open the borders like they did. And there was no hiding it. There was no excuse making for it. It is what it is. And Donald Trump, you know, that was his, like, that was his slam dunk in his campaign. And he's talked so much about, you know, closing the borders and all that. But quite frankly, I know that he's not going to be able to reverse the damage that has already been done. I feel like at best, maybe he'll be able to deport, you know, illegal immigrants that have committed crimes or things like that. But as far as like kicking in doors and dragging out families of illegal immigrants, and then when you look at like the whole anchor baby thing, right? If you're born on American soil, you're now a citizen. Those immigrants, they know, look, if nothing else, I need to come over here and start making babies immediately, right? So the whole idea that he's going to come in and deport millions of people is pure fantasy. I mean, that would require so much personnel, so much money. I mean, it would basically be a fucking humanitarian crisis trying to do that. And so one of the main things he's running on, he's not even in position to even carry through on that promise. All he can do really is close the border, stop handing out so much, like stop accommodating him so much. But even then, the damage has already been done, right? It's like I always say, you know, man, like you don't reward the person that robbed the bank, that robbed your safe, and then it's like, well, now I'll close it and lock it up for you. And I know Donald Trump might not be responsible, but still, I'm looking at it just as the government as a whole, right? Like the game is too easy to play like that. You know, screw the people over, then fix the problem after you got what you want, right? And like, nah, I'm not falling for that. And I know Donald Trump just is in position to carry through on the promise he's made about that. But the other thing too, and the most worrying thing about Donald Trump to me is his undying, unwavering allegiance to Israel during this whole war with Hamas that they've been going through. And I feel like one of the biggest issues that I've always had with politicians in situations like this is that they don't provide full context to the people as far as like why these conflicts are going on or why XYZ needs to happen in response to it. You know, it's just like the war in Ukraine, right? When Russia invaded Ukraine, Kamala literally said, you know, big country bad, little country good. She didn't go into an explanation of like the history of the Ukraine in relation to Russia. She didn't talk about the coup d'etat that occurred where the pro-Russian government was taken out and replaced with a more anti-Russian government, you know, the Zelensky regime that would be less sympathetic, less of an ally towards Russia, wanting to side with NATO, join NATO and things like that. You know, she didn't talk about that. I mean, even Ron Paul predicted that our meddling in Eastern Europe could escalate to war, right? Back in 2014. He saw this coming. You know, Ron Paul, one of those few politicians where you can tell he has a soul and he cares about the values of America and his people, but he predicted this. And with Donald Trump, it's kind of the same thing with Israel, where he's not providing full context to the people. I'm not saying that you have to take the side of Hamas or Palestinians or whatever. I'm saying that when you have someone in charge who's going to make decisions based off of a narrative as opposed to the full context of a situation, that's very dangerous. Because when people understand context, that changes their perspective and the actions that they're going to take. If you just look at Hamas attacking Israel and think that they just, oh, we're just going to go over there and attack them for no fucking reason, then yeah, you're going to blindly side with Israel, right? Despite the genocide, despite the fact that, you know, they've been killing far more civilians than military combatants, you know, and again, that's something that Donald Trump definitely isn't going to talk about. You know, if you have that full context, it changes how you look at it. And when you have the full context of knowing the history, you know, of how Israel was kind of just was pretty much given to the Jewish people after the Second World War, you know, and so their whole presence there is questionable going back, right? But again, I'm just saying, I don't care what side you're with, but I do not trust anybody, any politician that's providing a narrative instead of full context. That's exactly that was another issue going way back into World War II. You know, there was that famous fighter pilot, I forgot his name, but, you know, he talked about this as well, how our politicians were slowly but surely leading us to war with Germany and the Axis powers because of the same thing, fucking narratives as opposed to full context. And I think, to me, that's the biggest issue that I have with Donald Trump, to see him just blindly support Israel. Again, you can support it, fine, but give the American people the full context of the situation. Don't just say Israel good, Hamas bad. Talk about the fact that more civilians are being killed than enemy combatants. Talk about the history of why the Palestinians are provoked into attacking Israel in the first, like let the people know what's really going on, you know. And I know this is pretty much like Poe conspiracy, but you know, it's funny because now I've even heard David Icke talk about this as well, but how the globalists, the elites, again, however you want to label the people who are really in control, you know, how they like to manipulate events or manipulate things to get their desired outcome, right? And so what David Icke talked about, as well as this is also, I've seen this talked about on Poll, is that they want Donald Trump to win because they need to convince the other half of America that's really been getting shitted on for the past couple of years, you know, to go along with these new agendas, right? So if we do happen to go to war, or let's say we do happen to go into World War III or war with Russia or Israel, whatever the case may be, then you have the right guy for the job to get the majority on board. And when I say the majority, I mean white America. Regardless of how diverse this country is, it's still majority white. And so you have all these people who live and die based on what comes out of Donald Trump's mouth. You know, look, maybe Biden couldn't convince you to go to war, but Donald Trump can. And when you look at the way he talks about Israel and whatnot, and yet, like, it's very scary because it seems like he's ready to go to war just as much as Biden is ready to go to war with Russia, you know, supplying Zelensky with those, or rather giving him the approval to use long-range missiles against Russia, which could escalate the war into a global conflict. And so, you know, I just had a bad feeling overall about voting for Donald Trump, even though, again, if I gotta pick, I gotta go for the guy that seemed to have done a much better job. But I gotta be honest with you guys, I got a bad feeling. Like I don't think is Donald Trump winning or losing is going to make that big of a difference. I still feel as if that America and other first world countries around the world, I think that we're going through a slow decline. And I don't think anything is really happening to convince me otherwise, because we are only becoming more and more divided. every law, every policy, everything is just, again, putting a tighter noose around our necks. Now you can see these different governments around the world using climate change to create carbon taxes on cows, putting more pressure on farmers and things like that. Then you put the pressure on the farmers, then they have to give up their land, their job, but then that gets bought up by BlackRock or other billionaires, Bill Gates, whatever. Again, man, and it's like Evil Dead remake. Everything's gonna be fine. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but everything's only been getting worse every second. I'm that guy right now. I want to believe that at the very least Donald Trump can, steer America into a better direction, even if it's temporary. Shit, I'd appreciate that. But gotta be honest, I feel like the battle that we face as the common men of this world, it goes beyond Donald Trump, and I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to do it. If I had voted for Donald Trump and then he ends up sending us to war with Israel or escalating towards World War III or something, and man, I would feel so stupid. But on the other hand, if he does a fantastic job, then I'll kind of feel bad for not voting. So I guess it's kind of like, you got to take that risk sometimes. But this whole thing has kind of made me want to be a more responsible citizen or voter, even though I don't quite believe in the voting process and the structure of our government. It has made me realize that, it's not really good to only take an interest in voting when it's time to vote for the president. I need to keep an eye out for, all the elections that I can participate in. When it comes to deciding the senator of North Carolina, the House representatives, mayors, whatever the case may be, sheriff, I've made a decision to just be more involved as far as like knowing what's going on in my area, right? In my state, North Carolina, the politicians that are going to have a direct effect on me and whatnot. But again, still, even with that being said, man, I just feel like there are going to be tough times ahead, even though Trump won. But, last point I'll make about this, I've talked about this before, but the Trump derangement syndrome is real, bruh. Some of the things I've seen people talk about, like the fear people have about Donald Trump becoming president, like I can't believe it. If it wasn't for the fact that I live in a black community, so I see real people expressing these views, I would go online and just think I'm looking at bots, like expressing this level of fear and anxiety. It's like, dude, you survived 4 years of Donald Trump. And I know you saw how it got worse under Biden. Like, I don't understand how you guys are panicking so bad when we are literally going back to a president who did a better job than the one we've had previously. Again, you can have your issues with Donald Trump, but people, the level of anxiety and fear that he generates within some people is honestly disturbing. I hope these people are trolling. I hope they're just joking for X or Insta or whatever the social media platform may be, but it's honestly disturbing when I see people talk like that. It's very strange. But look, Donald Trump, he won throughout everything, multiple assassination attempts in and out of court. I think they say he had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for something or whatever the case may be, and then having his homes raided. I mean, Donald Trump has been just so targeted, and it's absolutely strange, to see a former president be the target of so many attacks. It's something like we've never seen before, and it almost makes me believe that he really is this maverick president that is absolutely for the people, but. Again, maybe that's what they, quote unquote, they want us to believe. Maybe he's just another pawn on the chessboard just as much as Kamala or Biden. But, only time will tell. I'm going to be paying close attention this time to his administration and what he does. Just to kind of see, because it's, you know, you have a guy who has a second chance basically, you know, and so let's see if if the first time around was a fluke or if he can really make a difference, you know. So I'm keeping an open mind here and just trying to see what he does with the opportunity that he has. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I'll see you in the next. So, Johnny.